Thinking of moving here to Delaware and not sure if it's going to break the bank? Well, in this video, I'm going to go over the cost of living here in Delaware, and then you can decide on whether or not the first state is going to be your first choice. Now, I'm only going to go over some of the most important things in this video, so you're definitely going to want to stick around to the end and make sure you don't miss anything important. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Windom, and I help people buy and sell homes here in Delaware. I've lived here my entire life, and on this channel, I go over exactly what it's like living here in Delaware. Now, if you're thinking about buying or selling a home here in Delaware, I'd definitely love to have a conversation and see if it made sense for us to work together or not. So I'll put all my information here on screen and again in the description below. Now, I get this question all the time from clients, and they say, "Hey Brandon, is Delaware expensive?" And the answer I give them is that it all just depends. Now, what I mean by that when I say it depends is it depends on what you're comparing it to. Now, if you're coming from California and moving to Delaware, Delaware is going to seem extremely cheap. But on the other hand, if you're coming from rural Mississippi, Delaware is going to seem like it costs an arm and a leg. So again, it just depends on what your baseline is. But here are some of the main things I go over whenever someone asks me that question. So first things first, you got to find a place to live whether you're buying or renting. So let's talk about my favorite topic, and that's housing. Right now, according to the National Association of Realtors, the median sales price is right around $375,000. Now, here in Delaware, the median sales price is right around $350,000. Now, that's about 7% cheaper than the national average. Now, this price can vary. It all just depends on where exactly you're looking for and what type of house you're looking for. Because I can promise you, if you're trying to buy a single family on the beach, it's definitely not going to cost you $350,000. Now, the national average for rents are a little bit different. I see this vary depending on what source you're looking at. Some say it's $1,300, and some I've seen say it's as high as $1,900. But here in Delaware, it seems like we're right around that national average, if not maybe a tad bit higher, depending on where you're looking. So that, as far as a dollar amount, just to give you some perspective, is going to cost you about $1,300 a month for a one-bedroom apartment. And it's probably going to cost you somewhere in the range of $1,500 to $2,000 a month for a three-bedroom. So Delaware seems to be right in line with averages, give or take a few dollars. Now, it's important to note that these numbers really don't give the full picture when purchasing a home here in Delaware, because we have to take into account the fact that we have some of the lowest property tax in the area, especially when we're compared to some of our neighboring states such as New York, New Jersey, and Maryland. So the second thing is healthcare. Now, this is a very important topic, especially with the events that have happened in the last couple of years. With that, everyone seems to be a little bit more conscious about their overall health, and they're trying to be a lot more proactive than they used to be. But with all that being said, Delaware does have a bit of a doctor shortage. And there seems to be two main reasons for that. Number one is that the state is always growing. And number two is that our average age here in Delaware is actually 41. And that ranks us number 7 in the entire nation. So with that being said, it means that more people are needing to see the doctor, whether it's just for routine care or if it's for something more serious. And we all know supply and demand. High demand, no supply, that means higher prices. So on average, here in Delaware, healthcare is going to cost you about 15% more than the national average. But you know how the saying goes, health is wealth. So can you really put a price on that? Next up is the utilities. You got to keep the lights on and you got to keep the water running. So on average here in Delaware, you're going to be paying about 5 to 6% more than the national average. So what that might look like in a dollar amount, just to give you some perspective, is on average, it's about $150 a month for your energy bill, about $45 a month for the water, and $60 a month for internet service. So overall, it's not too crazy. And a lot of that's going to vary depending on where in Delaware you're at and what type of home you're looking to buy, whether we're talking about an apartment, a townhouse, or a single family. Number 4 is childcare. You can't forget about the children. Childcare can be a huge expense depending on your needs. According to a recent cost of care study, over half the parents surveyed said they spent over 20% or more of their household income just on childcare costs. Now, as for Delaware, you can expect to pay around $11,000 a year, or right about $900 a month. Now, I know it doesn't seem like it, but that's quite a bit cheaper than the national average, which is $14,760 a year, or $1,230 a month. And that's just for one child. But if you're someone like myself that has more than one child, you just go ahead and sign over all your checks directly to the daycare. This last part is going to entail everything else. Let me start by saying one of the great things in Delaware is that we don't have any sales tax. So what that means is that if you see something that costs $5 on the shelf, when you go to the register, it's still going to be $5 when you ring it out. It's not going to be $5.15, $5.20, or $5.30 or anything like that. It's still only going to be $5. Let's hop right into it. On average, for goods and service, you can expect to pay about 7 to 10% more than the national average. And the food costs here in Delaware are about 9% more than the national average. But the good news about that is when you're traveling to go get those groceries, you might save a few bucks. Because here in Delaware, the transportation costs are about 6% lower than the national average. So you'll be able to save a little bit of money for that rainy day fund. So overall, compared to the national averages, Delaware is a tad bit higher, but it's still very affordable, especially compared to some of our neighboring states. Hopefully this video shed some light on the cost of living here in Delaware. So if you found this video helpful, but you still want to know more about Delaware, I actually made another video on it right here.